Welcome to Becoming a Nonprofit Thought Leader. This presentation is brought to you by Witness My Life, presented by the owner and founder, Sharice Floyd. Here is how we are going to spend our time together over the next 40 minutes or so. We're going to talk about what thought leadership is, why your nonprofit should be doing it, the perfect world, the benefits, the elements, a strategy, a quick start plan, and I'll also talk to you about how you can get help with all of this from Witness My Life. I am Sharice Floyd. I am the founder of Witness My Life. We are a storytelling and messaging firm that works with nonprofits and thought leaders across the country. Our goal is to increase your influence and revenue with thought leadership and strategic storytelling. We like to say that we help people raise their voices and tell their stories so that they are impossible to ignore. Here are a couple of things about me. I've done some things, I've won some things, but today I am here to talk to you about thought leadership and how it can be very beneficial for your organization. Witness My Life is all about respect. Our single mission is to bring the world together one story at a time. And we want to provide opportunities for people to support, educate, and encourage each other so that we all can get to that utopia, whatever that looks like for you. And we believe that story is the way to do that. So, what is thought leadership? I like to keep things simple. The simplest way to explain it is that it is an expression of ideas in an area of expertise. So, if you've spent a lot of time in any field of study, you are already a subject matter expert. What expands you into a thought leader is how you are using those ideas in the marketplace, where you are sharing your ideas, where you are showing up, how do people know of you, how have you built the brand around your ideas. And we're going to talk about that in relation to you as the person working in a nonprofit and the nonprofit overall. So, why should your nonprofit consider thought leadership? Well, it's often a very overlooked way of doing marketing. Thought leadership is attraction marketing. So, in nonprofit world, we're always talking about how we don't have time. We're always talking about time and money. Time and money in general is the currency of marketing. Time and money, right? So if you have a lot of money, you can circumvent time, right? If you don't have a lot of time, you have to spend a lot of money. And if you don't have a lot of money, then you have to spend a lot of time. So they coincide with each other. But when we're thinking about marketing, the usual methods of marketing is that we're doing our printings and our mailings, our sponsorships, subscriptions. We're doing all of the marketing 101 type of things that fall in that money bucket. Thought leadership is an investment more into time. There's the researching and the writing and the pitching and the speaking, creating the assets, networking, and doing all of those things. Now, thought leadership does not eliminate the need to spend money, but what it does do is help in attracting people to you in a way that at least will buy you some time until you have more money to spend. So, because your thoughts are always with you and they are your intellectual property, you're always churning out new things to be able to present to the public. So, when you think about your thoughts in terms of where you're sharing them now, right now, you're probably doing a lot of these things, right? You're writing, you're speaking, you're creating articles, but you're doing it internally for your newsletter, your email, your website, social media. Some of you probably, I know that you have because I've seen it done. You're writing incredible think pieces for your newsletter, and it's only going to your internal audience. And so, with thought leadership, we want to think about how we're going to expand that out to people beyond the audience that already knows who you are. Another great reason why thought leadership is important is because it is the only thing that you really own. All of the other things that are going on, from your ad platform to your printing and mailing, none of that do you really own. But you absolutely own your thoughts, you own your expression of thoughts, and you own your intellectual property. Now, I want you to think of something here. This is the perfect world that I like to get people visualizing this as we start talking about thought leadership. Now, imagine that you are standing on a mountain. You are about to deliver your signature speech. This is something that has taken time, money, and energy to perfect. It is a product of your experiences, your expertise, and your point of view. You're standing on that mountain. And I want you to frame it in terms of what you do in your nonprofit world. What is the mission of your nonprofit and how your position feeds into that mission, feeds into that purpose. So you're standing there in the perfect world, you're creating it based on that mission, and you give a message. What do you want to say? As the people are gathering under the mountain to hear how you are going to change the world with this message, how you're going to create this world that we all can live better in, what is that message that you want to give? As you think about that, imagine how that thought moves people because you're on the mountain, you've given the message to the people that are gathered at the bottom. Somebody in that audience gets inspired, and then they become an ally for your cause, someone who really, really believes in what you do. Or they become a hero, someone who will go all in for you no matter what. Wherever you are, they are going to show up. They're going to tell everybody about what you do. Someone gets inspired and becomes a donor, a board member, or a volunteer. That is what I want you to think about as we go through the rest of this program. Is that you're going to stand on that mountain and tell the story of your organization or even of yourself, as we will talk about. And your goal is to inspire someone to then invest in your organization. You want to attract people with your messaging, with your thoughts, with your leadership. So let's look at the benefits of thought leadership. As we talked about before, it is attraction marketing. So when you're out in the world sharing your thoughts, you're on that mountaintop giving that perfect message, you're attracting people who have an affinity for you. You're going to increase the influence that you have in the community. You're going to find people that are gathered at that mountain in that community that can provide you with opportunities. You're going to attract those constituents, those board members, volunteers. You're going to be building trust and credibility, establishing authority, increasing the nonprofit profile and exposure, all from sharing what you think, all from sharing your expertise in a particular subject matter, whatever that subject matter is. It could be the subject matter of your nonprofit or something that you have been educated on that complements the nonprofit. But these are the benefits that show up to you, and you don't have to spend money on this. This is just that investment in time. And when people hear from you and you tap into the reason that they will care about your cause, you can pull all of this into you and into the exposure of your nonprofit. So, what are some elements of thought leadership? We have articles. You're not new to this. Probably been writing for your newsletter. You're speaking. You're not new to this. You've probably been out speaking in the community at Rotary clubs, showing up in different places to pitch your nonprofit. Influencer marketing. You might be a little new to this, if at all, but it really is a collection of all the things, right? It's your white papers, your industry research, executive roundtables, forums, panels, content marketing. It's a collection and a body of work of all the things, everything that is in relation to the topic or subject matter of your nonprofit falls under this umbrella of thought leadership. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. This is some of the popular things, but you can have products in here, um, absolutely the services that you provide. It's all incorporated in a body of work under your nonprofit or the people who are designated to speak for your nonprofit. But let me ask you something. Have you already thought about thought leadership? And if are you already doing thought leadership? Is this how you did it? Did you kind of start with your services, started building relationships, started with the advertising, and kind of felt like, oh gosh, this isn't really going how I want it to go? And then you're like, "Ugh, what do I need to do here?" Well, your thought leadership is going to start with your story. Yep, you that's listening. It's going to start with your story. As a nonprofit professional, there is a reason why you are working in a nonprofit, and you want to be able to start with why you care before you can get someone else to buy in and care. So, your story is a collection of your experiences, your expertise, and your point of view. Remember, as we talked about that mountain, only you have this collection of things. There can be a number of people who work in the same nonprofit as you do, who champion a nonprofit subject matter similar to the one that you do, but no one else on the planet will have your set of experiences, expertise, and point of view. No one else. You are the only person on the planet that can do what you do in the way that you do it. And so when you're thinking about this in terms of thought leadership, you have to start with you. Why do you care? Why does it matter to you? Your story brings all of these things to life. We get your values out of your story, your authenticity, your belief systems, how consistent you're going to be in terms of thought leadership. All of that actually does come out of your background. And when you can understand who you are and why you do the things that you do and why you care about the things that you care about, then we can package all of that together and move you into the realm of thought leadership. But first, you have to be clear about you, how you show up, what are your strengths, what are the things that you really care about, what are the platforms that you think that you can succeed the most in, what, platforms you don't really care for, and you don't have to force this. Remember, we're talking about attraction marketing, and it's an exchange of energy. And we can feel when there is resistance. So you want to make sure that whatever thought leadership pieces, elements that you plug into, they are pieces that you absolutely love to do and that you find a particular bit of ease about that. But all of that is going to come from knowing who you are before we launch you into the realm of thought leadership. So let's look at the thought leadership strategy. It's very simple. We want to start with your intent. What are the programs and services that need exposure and what do you want to gain? Doesn't it always start with a goal, right? Where do you want to go? What are you trying to do? What is the real outcome that you're looking for? Then you're going to decide who is going to speak for the organization. Now, most of the time, a lot of the time, the executive director or the COO or president, CEO are usually the people who are speaking for the organization, but they don't always have to. Sometimes it's better that they're not the person that's speaking because there can be this built in bias that people have. And you would know that the more research that you have and the more that you do reputation management around the people in your organization. But who do you want to speak? And then you're going to decide what audience support the intent? Who do you need to be in front of to get to the goal that you want to achieve? And then the assets and outcome are very simple. What do you need to create in order to get there? And then what are the internal key performance indicators that you are going to track to determine if the thought leadership is successful? So let's look at what a strategy would look like in action. Now, say we have a person, she is an executive director of a domestic violence and homelessness organization. Now, she comes to this work because her daughter was a victim of violence. She came from a very affluent family. Never saw this for her family. No one ever does, but there was a particular set of bias that she had here that she was okay with admitting. She felt like the violence ruined her relationship with her daughter. And she saw how the kids were not only affected by the violence, but affected by the court system and vowed that she would be an advocate. So, as the ED of this organization, she serves a lot of women and children, mostly. But she would also see an increased number of men and increased people from the LGBTQ community. And what she really wants always needs funding. Every nonprofit always does. But she also wants to have in kind donations for the shelter around children and around these underserved communities that she's starting to serve more often. So, when you think about nonprofit thought leadership in general, you are essentially selling themes. It's soundbite marketing, it's bite sized information. So if you take that little blurb from her personal story, which is actually not a story, it's just a set of facts, just to be clear, um, look at what things come out of that. You have family violence, domestic violence in work, grandparents affected by violence, abuse in the court system. And then from the organizational side, you have serving underrepresented populations. Men are also abused. Gender abuse is not gender specific, children in shelter. So you see how you take the personal story of the individual, and you will do this whether you are the person speaking for the nonprofit or there's someone else speaking. You want to start with that personal story because there will be themes that come out of it for your why. And then as you move into the organizational profile, there are things that are coming out of it for the nonprofit's why. And there's usually a correlation, as we see here. Okay. So, as we take this a little bit further, what programs and services need exposure? From the previous slide, she wants to get more exposure on children, underserved populations, and families. Who's going to speak to this? Executive director, family advocates, volunteers, or board members? Who's the audience? We're talking women's, men's health, the business community, and the parenting community. Now, on this audience side, here's what I want you to think. We always start, a lot of us are doing local, internal, and then local marketing, right? But when you're talking about women and men's health, magazines, national publications that cover men and women's health, business community. Why would you be speaking to the business community? Well, there was that theme in there about domestic violence and work. And then the parenting community. So you want to not only think local, you want to think regional and national. You do not have to keep your thoughts within a small audience, okay? So, what are the assets and the outcomes here? You need to develop speaking topics, articles, and potentially a video asset. All right, so now we're looking at some potential topics, right? At first, we looked at some themes, and now we're looking at some potential speaking topics or article topics. Domestic violence and work, how violence affects productivity, or how to recognize abuse at work. Grandparents and violence, 3 generations of abuse, how to stop it before it spreads. The same with the organizational topics, growing up homeless, how abuse is the ultimate eviction notice, and can you hear me now? The deafening sound of abuse, because this particular organization also served quite a few people who were from the deaf community. Now, you see how these themes have then been translated into topics that you can use in a broader context. And guess what's happening the whole time behind the scenes for you or the person who is speaking? Your personal brand is expanding. So, as you're out there talking about nonprofit leadership, nonprofit management, however you spin the topics of your organization, your individual personal brand is also being established. So we have this, it's no longer an internal conversation. It's now an external conversation where you're publishing articles, you're being asked to speak, you become a strategic advisor, you can get paid board assignments, you become a trusted source that the media turns to. And the best part about this is that it starts to transcend outside of just your industry. The more that you get out and talk about your nonprofit, the issues around the nonprofit, and again, why it matters to you, it will transcend the industry that you're in. And you will be known for being a thought leader, being that expert in this category. And then when people think about how to collaborate and partner with you, they will pull you in to different industries, even though you service domestic violence in this case. So you can be pulled into a human resources conference. You can be pulled into tech conferences, domestic violence and stalking and those sorts of things. You can be pulled into different industries once you start publishing and getting your thoughts into the world. And again, attracting people to you, which ultimately ends up pulling in revenue and funding. So here is your simple, down and dirty, quick start plan to thought leadership. So first thing you're going to do is review your strategic plan. Everything leads back to your strategic plan. So if you have one, you want to review it, look at those places where you wanted to increase your influence and start there. Decide, where do you need attention in your organization right now? What services or products need to really have an awareness and really bring that area up to match whatever is in the strategic plan? Decide who's going to speak for the organization. Again, it doesn't always have to be the person at the top. I worked with a client where the executive assistant was the person speaking for the organization because one of their goals was to get donated technology, donated laptops, systems for workforce development. And she was the person who was the most tech savvy in the organization. So she was the person who was actually doing the articles and speaking in the realm of tech for the organization. So decide who is going to speak in terms of what it is that you need to do. Research current trends and events around your message. Excuse me. Excuse me. I thought I would get through this without coughing. Excuse me. So research current events and trends around your message. You can do this business journal, through Google, through industry papers, and look for those things that you can add your voice to. Research reporters in your local area who cover those trends, and then pitch a story. Create those themes and those topics as I showed you in the strategy session, and then get out there and get it done. Because here's the good thing that you need to know. People do not buy what you do. And when I'm talking buy in, support, fund, any of that. They are buying why you do it. They are buying how you make them feel. And they are buying the story you tell them about themselves. And so, as you're building thought leadership for your organization and building your personal brand, you must be aware that what you do in and of itself is not enough to bring people to you just because you are a nonprofit supporting a cause. We like to always say that nonprofits are raising awareness. Well, believe me when I tell you that people are aware of what you do. They are aware that the issue that you serve is happening in the world. Now, they might not be aware of how that issue affects them, and that is where you come in. You want to do something beyond raising awareness. You want people to do something with the awareness that you are, the awareness that they're gaining, right? And one of the best ways you can do that is with thought leadership and pulling people in and telling them the story of why, giving them the reason to feel something about it, and then giving them a motivation to move, even if that's playing into their ego, even if that's allowing them to be the hero, whatever it is, give them a motivation to move. Okay? Now, if you need help in this realm of thought leadership, I just want to give you a little bit of information about what Witness My Life does and why people come to us. We are all about that strategic narrative, and people come to us for a number of reasons. We do a lot of team building, we do a lot of having difficult conversations with this remote world that we're in, and people are coming back to work. We do a lot of building thought leaders, a lot of getting people on the same page, and just getting people to the point where they know the story of the organization, can recite the story of the organization, and we help people get onboarded with the stories of the organizations. Our core area of expertise is always storytelling. We do everything through the lens of storytelling. We do all kinds of marketing, thought leadership, no surprise there, leadership development, personal development, speech writing, executive strategy. And our process is very simple. We do a process of discovery, we do planning and strategy, implementation, and follow up. We always make sure that we follow up with clients after we do any kind of storytelling so that we understand what that ROI is and so that they can also see what the ROI is of working with us. I think I skipped a slide here. Let me go back. Ah, how do we work with you? We do training programs, in person and virtual, intensive people assessments, strategic planning, retreats, licensing, etc. And again, this is our process. And if you're interested in booking a consult, please feel free to reach out to me. I will be available here. We've done this in 30 minutes, so that's great. Give you back some of your time. And if you have any questions, I will be on for a little bit. Feel free to ask any questions that you have about thought leadership or anything in relation to story. One of our commitments always at Witness My Life is that we like to take complicated story structures and make them easy for you to understand so that you can recreate that over and over and over. And we call that the story maker's way. We believe great stories are about more than what you remember. Great stories are about what you can convey. And so when you think about being out in the community, doing your thought leadership, the most important thing that you need to do is to convey why this subject matter is important, how this subject matter is relevant to the greater community at large, and how we as individuals can get involved. And that is how you become a nonprofit thought leadership. So, again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm at Sharice at witnessmylife.org, or you can find me on LinkedIn and send me a message, and I will be happy to help you with your storytelling, assessments, and anything else that you may need. Thank you so much for joining me. You have a great day. Bye.